Something has felt off for days now. A low hum of restlessness you can't place. A moment where you caught yourself staring at nothing, waiting for something you can't name. Maybe it's the pace of the week. Maybe you haven't been sleeping deeply. Maybe it's the tension in the air that everyone seems to feel but nobody can explain. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. In less than 36 hours, a rare Venus-Saturn opposition reaches its peak, a transit that hasn't carried this precise weight since 2016. Astrologers are calling this the reckoning mirror, a moment when every relationship, every value, every quiet compromise you've been carrying gets held up to the light. This window opens tonight and closes after July 1st. What gets seen now cannot be unseen, and what the sky is preparing to show you about the path ahead is something the chart reveals only once you understand what this opposition is actually measuring. Venus sits at 22 degrees Gemini, her light scattered, restless, reaching in multiple directions at once. Saturn anchors himself at 22 degrees Sagittarius, immovable, demanding a single truth where Venus wants many options. An opposition in astrology is not a collision, it is a mirror placed at maximum distance, forcing you to see what you have been angling away from. Venus rules what you love, what you value, what you believe you deserve. Saturn rules what is real, what is earned, what endures beyond feeling. When these two face each other across the sky at this exact degree, the question being asked of you is precise. Is what you are choosing actually aligned with what you know to be true? You may feel it as a tightness across the sternum, a reluctance to open certain messages, a strange hesitation before saying yes to something that used to feel easy. That is not anxiety in the clinical sense. That is discernment arriving in the body before the mind has caught up. The physical signs of this transit are specific. A knot that forms in the throat when someone asks how you really are. Words that gather but do not leave your mouth, sitting heavy somewhere behind the collarbone. A sudden absence of patience for conversations that circle without landing anywhere. Hands that feel restless, picking up objects and setting them down without purpose. An alertness at 3 in the morning, not quite fear, not quite excitement, a charged stillness. And beneath it all, a quiet withdrawal from noise, not depression, but a gravitational pull toward your own center, as though something inside you is recalibrating. This is the reckoning mirror doing its work, and the fact that you are feeling it means it is working on you already. But to understand why this particular opposition carries such unusual weight, you need to look back about 6 weeks. In mid-May, Venus entered a prolonged square with Neptune that lasted through the first days of June. That transit was softer, more dissolving. It blurred edges, made compromises feel romantic, made ambiguity feel like freedom. Many of you made quiet agreements during that window, with other people or with yourselves, that were built more on hope than on evidence. Some of those agreements felt like relief. That relief was real. It was also temporary. What Neptune softens, Saturn eventually measures. The pressure you have been feeling in the past 10 to 14 days is not random turbulence. It is the accumulated weight of that Neptune period being handed now to Saturn for assessment. Think of it as compression before clarity. A diamond being formed does not feel comfortable in the making. What is being formed in you right now is a clearer understanding of where you actually stand. Not every person feels this opposition the same way, and the sky is pointing most directly at 3 types of experience in particular right now. If right now you are someone who has built something with care and patience, a relationship, a professional structure, a self-concept, and you have done so with genuine deliberateness, this opposition lands inside the axis of your identity and your philosophy of life, and it is asking you a question you may have been postponing for months. Saturn is now standing at the far end of what you constructed and looking back at you with an unflinching eye. And the question it is holding is this: did you build what you actually wanted? Or did you build what felt safe enough to want? There is a difference, and the reckoning mirror is illuminating it now. You may have noticed a recent friction with someone you care about, not a dramatic rupture, but a low, persistent disagreement about where things are heading, about what the future should look like. That friction is not a sign that the relationship is failing. It is a sign that both of you are being asked to be more honest than comfort usually allows. The relief you have been delaying by staying vague about what you need is exactly what Saturn is offering you now, if you are willing to be specific. This is not the time to soften your requirements. It is the time to name them clearly, with the understanding that clarity is not cruelty. What you discover about yourself in this window, about what you are genuinely unwilling to compromise, shapes the next 18 months of your life more than almost any external event. The door this opposition opens closes after July 1st. What you see about yourself before then is yours to keep. Those of you who have been generous recently, more generous than you have been acknowledged for, keeping things light when they were heavy, offering flexibility when you were exhausted. This opposition is happening inside your experience of your own worth. And somewhere underneath the adaptability you perform so fluently, there is a question that has been forming for several weeks. Is the energy you are extending being met with equivalent care? The reckoning mirror does not ask this question to make you bitter. It asks it because your greatest vulnerability right now is using movement and accommodation to avoid stillness. And stillness is exactly what this opposition is asking of you. One conversation you have been circling around, one you have framed to yourself as unnecessary or premature or risky, is the conversation that this transit has been building toward. Saturn does not reward avoidance, he rewards precision. The version of you that comes through this window is the one who stops negotiating with your own needs and says them plainly. That version is closer than you think, but the window is specific. What begins before July 1st carries Saturn's endorsement. What gets postponed past that date gets handed back to you without his structural support. And for those of you who have felt, in recent weeks, a specific kind of loneliness, not the loneliness of being without people, but the loneliness of being known only partially, of carrying an understanding of a situation that others around you have not yet arrived at, this opposition activates the territory where your most private knowing meets the world's demand for proof. Venus is pulling your attention toward relationships, toward the question of who actually sees you accurately and who is operating from a version of you that is already outdated. The reckoning mirror is particularly precise for you right now. It shows you not just what is true, but who around you can hold what is true alongside you. This is a moment of quiet sorting. Not dramatic endings, not sudden revelations. Quiet, almost imperceptible calibration of who you move toward and who you allow to quietly recede. What you are protecting now is not a wound, it is a compass. Trust it. The alignment this opposition offers comes once and then reorganizes. What you clarify about your inner circle before this window closes proves foundational. Let's mark where we are. The reckoning mirror has shown you the mechanics of this opposition, anchored it in the pressure of the past 6 weeks, and walked through what 3 distinct types of experience are each being asked to face. Some of you are feeling clarity right now, a sense of, yes, that is exactly what this has been. Others are feeling a kind of resistance, a reluctance to accept what the mirror is showing. Both responses are valid. Both confirm you are inside this transit. The energy is active. What differs is only the direction you choose to move. And this brings us back to the tension named at the beginning. That low hum of restlessness, the stare at nothing, the waiting for something unnamed. Now you have a name for it. The reckoning mirror was already doing its work on you before you had language for it. The body knew before the mind arrived. That is not a metaphor. That is how Saturn oppositions function. They arrive in the nervous system first and only later in the vocabulary. Now, the shadow side of this transit because power without awareness becomes its own trap.